the audio in the previous session, so we'll fiddle with that. Okay, now the next session is about Profile2, which was developed by Steve Swinsberg, and I don't think you really need me to introduce him, but well, he's our Sakai guru at the ANU, at the Australian National University, and he's also, should I say that?
Yeah,
just read out.
No, that's right.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really. Yeah, take too long. Okay. Basically, I just want to mention briefly. Yes, Steve Swinsberg is going to have another session tomorrow, talking about the U portal as well. So anybody who is Steve's fan, please go along. Okay, now.
Thank you, Carning. So yeah, this afternoon I'm going to be talking about Profile2, which is a social networking tool for the Sakai CLE, but it's more than a tool because it's actually a whole profile and social service that you can use, other tools can use, other tools are starting to use to integrate profiles everywhere and infest the rest of Sakai. So I'm going to be talking about Profile2, where the project's at. It's actually quite a mature project, it's been around for a number of years. Go through some of the key features, do a demo, and talk about some of the new stuff that's coming along in the next version. So Profile2 is a complete rewrite of the profile. The original profile was a little bit lacking, so we decided rather than extend that particular tool, we would actually rewrite it. Now, we do use the same basic backend, so data that was in Profile 1 carries straight across to Profile 2. So we then extended that backend to add more fields, add more features. We also added a bunch of social networking features, things like posting a status update, that links into Twitter as well. You can find people, you can view their profiles, and you can add them as a connection. So similar to how you add someone as a friend on Facebook. You can, in the latest version, which ships with Sakai 2.8, you can send them direct messages and you can share pictures as well. And this all started because of an ESRC grant at Lancaster University in 2008. That's where I was in 2008. So underpinning Profile2 and one of the core principles behind Profile2 is privacy. So a rich set of privacy settings. I know that in the US there's strict privacy settings called FERPA. I don't know too much about them, but this should cover off FERPA. These are basically a per user setting. You can allow information to everyone that's logged in, just your connections, just yourself. The defaults can be configured by the institution and you can optionally lock it down. So if your institution has a certain privacy policy, you can set all these to maybe only my connections and then lock them so that no one can inadvertently open up their email address to everyone that's logged into the system. So that's all completely configurable. Also, because a lot of the things in Profile2 can be turned on and off, or there's quite a few different settings and ways that things can be presented, there are a rich set of preferences as well, and these are again per user preferences. So you can control when you get email notifications. If someone adds you as a connection, do you want to get an email about that, or don't you really care? Just next time you log in, you'll see a notification. If someone confirms your connection request, do you want an email about that? You can link your Twitter account in this page. This uses OAuth, so we do not touch your password. You can turn on the official image support. Now this can be turned on at a per institution level and then locked again, but you can also give people the option. If they have an official image, it might be one of those crappy images, they can change it to one that they can upload. Or you can just lock it so that everyone gets the same image. Not the same image, the same institutional image. We've got a few widgets that can be turned on and off. There's a Kudos widget. So this is a new feature which I'll talk a little bit more about later, but it essentially gives you a rank about how active you are in participating in the profile. and the Twitter feed. This hasn't actually been activated yet, but it eventually will allow you to see like a Twitter stream. Again, the default's configurable via Sakai properties. So one of the big things is a roster integration. Roster is a tool in Sakai CLE which you can see the site members and you can optionally see their pictures. So there is a special integration piece deployed with Profile2 which you can activate, and it will pull your profile information into the roster so that you can then see the images from there because we've replaced the original profile. Okay, so where the project is at. Since January 2009, we've had 24 releases of this project, and that ranges completely through the different versions of Sakai. So we first shipped Profile2 in Sakai 2.7, and we're now about to code freeze for Sakai 2.9. So I think there are about 16 releases of Profile2 in Sakai 2.7, various bug fixes, different features going in, things being cleaned up. The thing about why there were so many releases is because we've moved in Sakai CLE to this notion of independent releases. So tools don't need to release themselves when the next version of Sakai CLE comes out. So between Sakai 2.7.0 and Sakai 2.7.1, let's say it was 4 months, there might have been a whole stack of bugs in a particular tool. They can be fixed and released immediately, and institutions can just change the number of the tool that they're deploying and get that new version of the tool. So it allows for a more rapid release cycle of the tools, and it means the bugs are fixed a lot quicker. In the 1.4 release, which is included in Sakai 2.8, there are 308 bug fixes or new features and counting. So I think I took that figure last week. And there's been some more go in. If you're wondering about which version you should be using, so the current stable version for Sakai 2.7 is 1.3.17. So there's been 17 releases of 1.3. And for Sakai 2.8, 1.4.2. So because a lot of the bugs got fixed in the 1.3 release, that's why we haven't seen as many in the 1.4 release. And there's a little bit of a compatibility matrix here. 1.3 is basically the original profile tool, which shipped with Sakai 2.7. Don't ask me about the naming convention, why it's not 1.0. But it's compatible with 2.4, 2.5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and possibly into the future. Because generally with Sakai releases, APIs don't get broken, they get added to, hopefully. So the version of the APIs that Profile 2 1.3 is using are still the same versions. Whereas in something like 1.4, we're taking advantage of new stuff that's been added. So you can't drop Profile 2 1.4 into an older version. In terms of code, for the 1.4 release, the back end has been completely refactored. What that means is it's been improved. We've split out the single API, which turned out to be enormous, into multiple APIs that you can use. So if you're writing a tool, you can actually inject these APIs into your tool and get information about people's profiles or people's connections. So there's a profile logic API, there's connections, there's things about preferences. You know, has this person got their Twitter feed turned on? Again, that's all still controlled via the privacy settings, so you can't really get around those. But it gives tools a way to use the services that Profile2 is providing. And one of the big things is entity providers. So if you remember my talk about the mobile Sakai earlier this morning, I would have mentioned entity providers and given you a little bit of a demo. These are basically RESTful interfaces to Profile2 data. And what I mean by REST, basically, is it's a nice URL that you can go and get some information about something. You can make a GET request, which simply means typing the URL into your browser and pressing go. and then you get some data back. Now, we can do that programmatically, and we can do that from things like JavaScript to create rich interfaces. One of the entity providers that Profile2 supplies is a profile image entity provider, and that's actually being incorporated into the forums tool. So when you post in the forums tool in Sakai, you'll now be able to see the person's image. Now, everyone gets a permanent URL to their image, so that can be cached by the browser, and it means that the forums tool, or whichever tool is consuming this data, doesn't need to have a lot of back-end stuff written for it. It's actually quite heavy to inject a service into another tool and then wire it all up and do all this extra stuff. You can just use a bit of JavaScript, or you can just do a bit of HTML and get this information straight up. The entity providers all use the same security and privacy settings, so again, no way around that. Because of the way the API is written, you can't get around that. It's a core feature, the privacy. For configuration, this might be a little daunting, but there are 35 Sakai properties you can use to change stuff. That's actually quite a lot. There's probably only about 60 or so in the actual Sakai properties that you're using now. There's heaps more, obviously all the defaults, but the ones that you actually change, there's not that many of them. So for them to be 35, that's quite a lot. A lot of those are the privacy settings that you can turn on and off at an institutional level. You don't actually have to set any of these. Out of the box, it works. It's only if you want to tweak things. If you want to turn off the ability for people to upload a picture, you can do that. If you want to set the privacy settings, like I mentioned earlier, you can do that. If you want to lock it down so people can't change them afterwards, you can do all that. If you want to activate things like the official profile image, you can do that, and there's a few settings. You know, we can pull it from LDAP, or we can pull it from a database, or we can pull it from some URL. All that sort of configuration you do in Sakai properties. That link there, which will be at the end as well, that goes through all of the settings that you can apply. Some of the awesome new stuff that's coming along. This is actually in already in Sakai 2.8. There's this thing called the external user search interface, and because I don't see many developers in the audience, I will just say that this allows us to search external users. So prior to this, if you did a search inside Sakai, you would only find internal accounts. You wouldn't find people in LDAP. This allows you to find people in LDAP or some other directory that you've got configured up. So likewise for Profile2, we can do a search out. So someone may never have logged into Sakai before. Everyone gets a profile though. So we can actually find them and send them a message if we wanted to, or add them as connection. Again, you can turn all that stuff off. But it just allows us to integrate beyond the actual installation. The original driver for this was that if you were to write a bit of code that allowed your system to hook into multiple LDAPs, so let's say I wrote some code that our system hooked into the ANU LDAP and also hooked into the CSU LDAP and maybe the Indiana LDAP, if we had some sort of collaboration going on, I could then find someone in the Indiana system. So we can search across institutions. It doesn't have to be LDAP, it could be any sort of external directory provider. Like I mentioned, the institutional images, like the official images, you can enable them and you can force them if you want. Again, I mentioned multiple sources, and you can optionally give users the option to upload a different one. Again, configured in Sakai properties. There's an improved notification system, so if you get a connection request, you'll see immediately in Profile2 a little indication that you've got 5 connection requests outstanding or 26 messages unread. There is movements to get this information incorporated in the new portal, which I'll show you in a moment because that's what I'm running on this laptop. But there's a chat feature of the new portal. And so just like in Facebook, if someone comments on a post that you've commented on or sends you a message, you get that little pop-up thing in the corner. We can do stuff like that. So I've mentioned private messaging. You can send messages to your connections. It's a threaded discussion, and it supports multiple participants, although we haven't actually coded that in yet. The support is there for it. And like I said, there's a planned integration with the Neo portal so you can get an instant notification. This Kudos feature, this was requested a couple of years ago, and I thought about it for a while and finally figured out how we might be able to do it. Basically, you get a score which is calculated on how much you do stuff. So the more messages you send, or the more connections you have, or the more status updates you push out, or how more complete your profile is, you'll get a score. And this is displayed on your profile. You can turn it off if you want. And it's basically just a nightly process that runs and calculates this score. I understand not everyone likes this, but some people did really want it to encourage participation. So that's for them. You just turn it off if you don't like it. Something contributed by Lancaster University, the original organisation where I was working and wrote this tool. They've continued to work on it as well, and they've contributed a gallery feature. So you can upload and share images. You can set one of those pictures as your profile image. And some planned features are that we're going to be able to browse and manage those images, reorder them, basically a whole sort of gallery management system. There's been a gallery tool in Sakai for a while, but it's kind of slipped by the wayside. So hopefully this will either consume that or complement it going forward. New for 1.5, which will ship with Sakai 2.9, is a news feed. So as you do things, events get published to your wall, and you can actually comment on them just like in Facebook. You can also write on other people's walls. Again, you can turn this off if you don't like it, but I'll give a demo of that in a few moments. Also, gravatars. A gravatar is basically a global avatar. So you log into the gravatar system with your email address, upload a picture, and then any system that supports gravatars, you can just, it's generally linked to your email address. So if the system supports gravatars, your picture is there automatically. You don't need to upload the same picture again or try and find that picture. Online status. So this is also new for 1.5. You can set your online status. You can also control this via preferences and privacy settings. You can go online and offline. It hooks in with the chat. So the chat message shows your online connections. I may not be able to demo that, but if you think of the connections in Facebook, you can go online and offline within that as well. So the entity providers behind Profile2 are driving this Neo chat part of the portal. Basically, we're giving it the list of connections and also your online status. So every time you publish something or do something in Sakai right now that triggers an event, that updates your online status in the background. Again, you can go online or offline. So this information can then be used to possibly integrate into another chat client or into like a desktop chat client. I was thinking that perhaps Neo Chat could be ported to something like uPortal. Yep. 5 minutes? Okay. Really? Worksite creation, so you can create worksites from connections. If you have a group of people, you can spin off a site and collaborate. So you add a bunch of people as connections and you can say, hey, we should get together and talk about phishing, and then invite them to a worksite directly from in profile. You don't have to worry about the administrator. I mean, obviously this needs to be turned on, but you can create these project collaboration sites. So a bit of a demo. Just make this browser a little bit smaller. So this is the Neo portal. It's a little bit clipped on the side there, but basically it's paying a homage to the original Sakai 3 watery background. It's also quite a nice new interface inside. But I won't worry about that too much. Okay, so this is my profile. I've got nothing in it. This is a fresh install. I can come in here and I can add information. I can type in my birthday if I want. Now, some people might not want their birth year displayed. That's no dramas. We can turn that off. If you want to come in here and fill out some more information. Now, I've actually got Gravatar enabled in this system. So what I'm going to do here is type in my email address, and then if I refresh, I now have a picture. Not a very nice picture. So the preferences, so I can turn all these things on and off. There's quite a few more that were in that screenshot. So if I want to get an email when someone adds me as a connection or confirms connection request, sends me a message, does any of that sort of stuff. I can link my Twitter account. Okay, we get a code, we'll stick it in there, we get a link, and now I'm linked. So now when I send a status update, it's going to go out to Twitter as well. I'll do that in just a moment. If I didn't want to use my Gravatar as my image, I'll just turn that off here. If I didn't want people to see my Kudos rating, it's not actually visible at the moment because the process hasn't run, but if I didn't want anyone to see that, I could just turn that off. My pictures, online status. And if you're not sure what these do, there's little hovers, although it's not working too well on this computer. Okay, click save. So I don't have any connections, so I'll do a search. Now it's remembering my last search, and what I'm going to do is, I've done a search for Swinsburg. I'm going to add Erin. Now, I can turn on and off who can see my picture. I might just show that, the privacy settings. So each of these can be turned on and off. Profile image, only my connections should see that, so I'll set that. My contact info, don't really want anyone seeing that because it's very secret. I want my connections to see my student information. Only my connections to see my status. And I don't want my birth year shown. So we save that. Now to you, you'll see it all because it's your profile, except for the birth year, but at least that's a visual indication that your birth year is now turned off. So people looking at your profile won't be able to see your birth year. If you hid the basic information altogether, they wouldn't be able to see any of it. So now someone searching for my profile will be subject to those privacy settings. So I've added Erin as a connection. So if I go into her profile, she's got a notification here that I've got one connection request. She can either confirm, ignore. She can actually view my connections. She can click through and view my profile. Okay. Now, she can only see a few things. You can see up here this online status thing. It's not fully implemented yet. That's why it's flickering. But this is all subject to those privacy settings that we set before. So you can see she can't see my birth date, which is one of the things I did set. And you can see here that we've got a connection request pending. So we'll come in here and we will confirm that. Okay, so now we're connected. And go back there. We can see a bit more information. She can see my picture now. She couldn't see my picture before because I had it set to only connections and we weren't connected. Come back in here, profile. Okay, so we've sent that out and it's gone out to the Twitterverse. So if anyone's on the Twitter stream, you should be able to see that. We can see a little wall of stuff that's happening. This is just because I'm on my demo system here. Don't worry about that. But we can comment on things like this. We can remove these events. Okay, we can post stuff. And then other people will be able to see, if we're connected, they'll be able to come in and comment on that, just like you can in Facebook. So the chat down here, this is part of the Neo portal. And here we go, I've actually, because I'm connected to someone now, I can see that person. So you can see there that it's pulled in list of connections from Profile2. And we can see that this person's actually offline because they're logged out. Because if I opened a new browser window and logged in, then that would come online. And then we can click and chat with them. But that person's offline. So if they were online, we'd be able to start a conversation with them. They'll get sent these messages and back and forth. And this has all been driven by this, the data coming out of Profile2 through these entity providers. I'll just quickly go through some of these new things. So the idea was floated to me about having badges, these achievements for when you do things. They don't necessarily have to be profile things. They can be hooked into stuff, maybe something like the gradebook. So if you get an A, you get a badge. Or if you get 10 connections, or if you accomplish 10 wiki edits, you get a badge for those. Again, like the Kudos thing, some people like it, some people despise it. So still very much in concept phase and trying to figure out what might be the best way to do this. Mozilla have an initiative to do this. It's called a badge backpack. It, again, is in concept phase. So I think we're just going to watch this space and see what happens there. A mutual connections panel, I think it's something that's missing. Basically, you can see someone else's profile and see who else is connected that you're connected to, drill through into those connections. The ability to assign tags to people, so if you want to, kind of like Google+, if you want to tag someone as like a friend or a colleague, you can do so. If you noticed the search before, there are actually two boxes. I want to combine those into one box and just have like a filtered search so you can search on different fields. And some user interface improvements. So University of Michigan actually performed an evaluation of Profile2 when they were doing the Neo portal work, and they found that the edits which appear when you hover over stuff were a little bit hard to figure out. So we're working with, I'm working with some functional developers and UI developers to figure out the best way to do that. Maybe a button which turns on edit mode or something like that. And extending the gallery so that we can manage videos inside the inside Profile as well. One thing that a lot of people want is the ability to customize what fields are shown. So in order to do that, we're probably going to need to rewrite the database backend. In hindsight, when I originally wrote this, it probably shouldn't have been so nice in using the existing implementation because there have been quite a few issues with it. So this will give us a chance to actually rewrite that backend and also perform a conversion. So none of your data will be lost, it'll just be converted into this new format. One thing I really want to do is the ability to set some stuff as public. So you can control each section of your profile, each of those little portions can be controlled to everyone that's logged in, just your connections, and sometimes just to you. But I want to add an additional setting which is that's public. So rather than having a separate public profile, staff profile or something on a web page, you can just embed this profile on that staff web page. People go to one spot, they update it, and it's updated everywhere. To ease the transition to Sakai OAE, we'll have some sort of standards compliant export. We were talking last night about Vivo, which is a sort of a standard interface for profile, representing profile information. Thinking about vCard export, although that may be a little difficult with the privacy settings, it'll probably have to tie in with the public setting that we choose, because you could then give that vCard to someone else. So again, that'll probably have to tie in with the public view. Forms integration I've mentioned, so that's actually going ahead, which is awesome. And we're thinking about external integration, so pulling information in from Facebook or LinkedIn, optionally sending stuff back out to those. There's this concept of profile fatigue. You've got a profile in Facebook, in probably not MySpace anymore, but rest in peace. LinkedIn, sorry I said that, Twitter, you've got all these different profiles everywhere. So now you've got one in here as well. People don't want to make more profiles, they just want to pull stuff in and have it synchronized. That's one thing where Gravatar is really cool. You don't have to upload an image to all these different places. Sometimes if you're commenting on blogs, you'll notice that your image just appears and you're like, what the hell, I didn't put that there. But that's because it's in Gravatar, or it's in your profile that you've logged in with, like your WordPress or your Blogger profile, or whatever you've signed in with to comment on someone else's blog. It's just information just being pushed out without you having to do anything. So that's all I have today. So happy to take any questions or show some more things in the demo. Show more things in the demo. Okay. Alrighty. So we don't have any pictures. We can upload. Oops. We can upload a picture. Where's one that's not of me being stupid? Okay, there's a picture of my budgie. You can see a picture of him. I'll just get rid of this chat. So the gallery needs a bit of work because it's not as fluid as I'd like. I'd like to have it so that it comes up and you've got a gallery that you can just click through the different pictures. Our connections, we can see the connections, we can drill into their profiles. We can send them an email straight away. The setting which I haven't got enabled on here is the create a worksite setting. But this is where you would tick the people and then you click create worksite and then they get invited to a worksite. Messages, I haven't shown messages yet. So we want to compose a message to... This should come up with my connections. This is the problem with live demos. Basically, that comes up with a drop-down list of your connections. You can choose a person to send it to. You can't send it to someone you're not connected to. And then you'll get a... let me just log out. That is not working. Bummer. But you'll see that you'll have a threaded conversation going down the page. It does normally work. These are the search boxes that I was saying about collapsing into one and just having a, some toggles. So you don't have to search by name. You could search by interest. I don't have much data on this setup, but if I was to go to a real one, I could actually search for real people. Yep.
Looking at that, obviously at CSU we saw 2.4 looking to go to Sakai OAE, so we don't have the stepping stone of sort of like a profile to sort of in there.
Yep.
Can you give us an indication of the functionality that we can expect
Yep, so it's actually quite similar. So when when I originally started this project, I was talking to the guys at Cambridge. We had a few video conference calls about how we should do this, and we tried to keep it quite similar. So you've got, it's more of an academic profile in OAE. You can add like your publications and things like that. But essentially, it is quite similar. I believe, I haven't looked at it for a while, but I believe you can turn bits on and off, so the similar sort of privacy settings. Yeah, so quite similar functionality. If you wanted to, you could actually use Profile2 1.3 version, which is quite stable. We're using it here at ANU. Yeah, you could use that in your version right now, because I know you guys are on 2.4. Yeah. So I'm in as Aaron now. So uploading pictures, it's as simple as clicking the form and uploading a picture. Again, if we had institutional images, they would just be populated automatically, and that's configurable by the institution. Yep.
Steve, is open social relevant here?
Yeah, so I've been meaning to look at this a bit more in terms of the rewrite of the back end so that it lines up with open social. I haven't got around to that yet, but that will be something I'm definitely looking at when I get around to doing that rewrite. Yep. Any more questions?
Well, but follow up on that. I mean, okay, so let's say you do some rewrite and you put it in open social. What will be the benefit?
So the main thing I'm interested in is the portability and also the ability to bring in the open social, the widgets or gadgets, whatever they're called. So as part of that, I'd probably be looking at writing some sort of gadget container or however it needs to be written so that we can bring that stuff in. And then the tools or the gadgets that are already written will just take advantage of that data. Okay, well if there's no more questions, we'll leave it there. Thanks a lot everyone for coming along. Oh, sorry, did you have a question? Oh, yes, please do.